I know it seemed hopeless at the start of the season after all the nerfs Hog EQ received and the introduction of the Death Machine. But believe it or not, Hog EQ is actually good. A lot of broken cards got nerfed in the last set of balance changes, which has set the meta in a great spot for Hog EQ. In this video, we're going to be breaking down gameplay from the #1 Hog EQ player in the world. I will explain matchup strategies, micro interactions, and give you guys the most useful tips and tricks so that you can master Hog EQ. The depth of explanation is one of a kind here on YouTube, so with that being said, here are the matchups. The first game is against Royal Giant, the second game against Drill Cycle, the third game is a mirror matchup, the fourth game is against a Furnace Bridgespam deck, the fifth game is against a Giant Goblin machine deck, and finally, the last game is against Logbait. Let's jump right into the breakdown. Dam cycles his skeletons at the bridge, and you might be wondering why he does this. Well, when your opponent is running Cannoneer, if you play your skeletons at the bridge, they'll actually get one hit on the tower if left unanswered. He goes for his Firecracker up high so that it switches lanes, and notice how he goes for a Hog plus an Ice Spirit. The Berserker is out of cycle, so he knows his opponent has to go for minions, so he goes for the Ice Spirit to stun the minions, and then the Firecracker gets that beautiful hit, and they're all dead. Okay, this is a really important defense. Pay attention. He goes for a perfect cannon, the furthest possible placement away, perfectly timed log to reset the Royal Giant animation, and then as soon as the Fisherman crosses halfway across the bridge, that's when he played his Mighty Miner. He did that because if he played it any earlier, the Mighty Miner would have been pulled to the Fisherman. So he waited for the Mighty Miner to be in range of the Fisherman's melee attack and so that it wouldn't pull it. Then he goes for this really aggressive Hog Firecracker. Now you might wonder, like, when is the right time to go for a Firecracker at the bridge? And usually it's very matchup dependent. The reason he goes for it that aggressively in this matchup is because if he's just cycled it in the back, it's just going to get fireballed, right? So in matchups where it's hard to get damage, A, and B, your opponent has a good spell to deal with the Firecracker, usually you want to be aggressive with your Evo Firecrackers in particular. So when the opponent went for Royal Giant in the back, Dam responded with a Mighty Miner in the back to activate 3-card cycle. He then went for a Firecracker, and since the opponent used his Fireball on the Firecracker, now he's just aggressively trying to cycle back with his 3-card cycle, and now he's back to another Firecracker. He has to protect his cannon for as long as possible, and now the opponent doesn't have Fisherman in cycle, so he goes for a Mighty Miner plus Ice Spirit just to fully counter this RG. Unbelievably, the RG does not get a single hit on the tower. Now, the Evo Furnace does unfortunately get one hit and one Fire Spirit on the tower, but that's kind of the biggest issue that you have against Furnace decks. It's not really the Furnace, it's just the Evo Furnace. So you're going to pay attention to how he manages to deal with it. This is a really smart play. You see how he went for a Hog Rider on offense? He went for a Hog Rider on offense so that the opponent could not then use it on defense to pull his Mighty Miner away, and it's a free defense against the Royal Giant. Notice again how he's also used his skeletons to protect his Evo Firecracker so that it will kill the Furnace. He doesn't overcommit and make sure it stays alive to kill the Fisherman, but in that time you can already see that now it's kind of simple for him to defend. He goes for this Mighty Miner, but the opponent's cycle 2 Fisherman's already. Notice how he played his Firecracker in the middle so that once it was done defending, he can then counter push in the opposite lane, forcing out a Berserker, which is now essentially dead. Minions as well, they can be easily countered with some cycle card. Perfect log timing onto that, into the Furnace, and now we just got to reset. The opponent goes for an RG in the back, and you can notice how he's again just aggressively cycling, because you don't want to just be too passive once you get later on in the game. If you get too passive, you're just going to get overwhelmed with the pressure. Another thing I want you to pay attention is that he's abusing the fact that his opponent is using Cannoneer by going for skeletons in front of his Hog Rider. When you go for skeletons in front, of course the Cannoneer and the Fisherman are both being tanked by the skeletons. So he then goes for this beautiful Earthquake just to make sure that Evo Furnace is in log range and also just to slow down the attack. Goes for an instant cannon plus Mighty Miner, and then this Ice Spirit unfortunately gets knocked back by the RG, and so the RG gets 2 shots on the tower. It's pretty much a level game. Look, again, he's gone for skeletons with his Hog, tries to distract, but then the opponent is now forced to overcommit. And look, because he spent so much elixir defending, the opponent can't really support this Royal Giant. He's just gone RG at the bridge and then just played a bunch of spells. And now, 10 seconds left, Mighty Miner's on the field, you have 3-card cycle, all that Dam is trying to do is spell cycle, cycle his Earthquakes, and yeah, he manages to clinch the game. An incredible game against a really difficult matchup. The next game that I'm going to be covering is actually insane. We're going to be covering Dam playing against easily what is one of the top 3 hardest matchups for Hog EQ, which is Drill Cycle. As soon as he sees that drill and he sees that furnace, I already know that he's sweating bullets. So he goes for a hog, it gets countered. He now has to defend this furnace. He goes for this cannon. That's point one for this matchup to pay attention to, is that low cannon position will fully counter a furnace after you've logged it as well. It's sort of, you can think of a furnace as kind of like a musketeer. The range is the same as a musketeer. So in the same way a musketeer outranges a cannon, so does a furnace. Both players cycle their Mighty Miner in the back, and the reason for this is so that they both have 3-card cycle. Dan then goes for this really nice Firecracker up high. It doesn't really mean to predict the skeletons, but he does. And one thing you'll notice is he's playing it quite a bit higher. This has actually changed, something that has changed since the Firecracker nerf. The reason this change has happened is because the pushback of the Firecracker has been reduced. So in order for you to make the Firecracker change lanes, you need to start playing it higher. I think the tile placement that he uses that I've seen him play is 3 tiles from the bridge in the middle, so that it'll target anything in the right lane and then switch to the left. Opponent goes for wall breakers at the bridge, and so he just goes for Ice Spirit plus skeletons. If you guys didn't know, an Ice Spirit isn't enough to fully counter wall breakers, so you need to make sure you go for those skeletons as well. And now he goes for a hog, right? He goes for a hog at the bridge, prediction earthquake, beautiful. I mean, he already knows what deck his opponent is playing at this point. So now he has to sort of set up for this Evo Furnace drill push that's about to come. This is a big thing. Look at this cannon placement. This was a new cannon placement that I learned. It's a very useful cannon placement, especially in this matchup against drill and the furnace. It will shoot any drill placement, whether the drill is, except on the extreme outside of the tower. And more importantly, it will tank for this furnace. So he goes for this, look at this Firecracker. Firecracker gets beautiful hit, and then log, tiny bit too late with the log, so one of the wall breakers does connect, but overall, pretty good defense. Goes for a hog, I don't know why the opponent pre-placed a cannon, that's just a bad play. And so the hog manages to break through, he just went for a nice quick earthquake. Goes for his own Mighty Miner, and goes for an Ice Spirit just to reset it. He's trying to make the opponent waste his ability. He uses this Evo Firecracker for the opponent's furnace just to make sure that it dies. And look at that really nice cannon placement. If you play your cannon right in front, usually most people play drills at the front, and so it will catch the drill and also tank for wall breakers if you need to. It will also hit anything at the bridge, so there's quite a lot of benefits to playing your Evo cannon there, but only in this matchup, right? You don't want to be doing that in other matchups. Maybe also minor matchups occasionally. See, look, he goes for this prediction cannon. The reason he went for that cannon is to stop the opponent from being able to go for a cannon up high. The opponent went for a cannon up high anyway, just to pull the hog to the middle so that he could get this drill placement down. Kind of smart by the drill player, but the problem is that he spent so much elixir and his win conditions now are out of cycle. Again, you can see that he keeps going for these like prediction cannons. They're really smart by Dan. You're just forcing out, look, opponent had to spend elixir on skeletons, which basically just made that earthquake, like a 2 elixir earthquake. Here comes the Evo Furnace plus drill push. Look at that Firecracker placement. He did the same thing earlier. It's a really nice Firecracker placement that you guys can learn for drill. Fire a cannon up high. Again, now the opponent can't go for a cannon down low. This is a really nice cannon placement by the opponent, but it leaves you very susceptible to going for a log. So Dan goes for a log, hog gets to the tower, good damage. Look, he's not rushing. Goes for a Mighty Miner in the back. He's just getting 3-card cycle, 3-card cycle. Just get that, because defending is actually not the end of the world if you play well. A really nice Firecracker placement. Look how it hit all of those goblins from the Goblin drill. Skeletons kind of clean up the wall breakers, but not quite. Again, he's got these cannons at the... You can see how he keeps playing cannon at the bridge to stop his opponent from being able to go cannon at the bridge, which is then just allowing him to just prediction EQ every time and just apply so much pressure. I mean, Firecracker's now just teeing off, and dude, look how he made such a difficult matchup look like it's easy. I mean, he destroyed this guy. This is one of the hardest matchups for Hog EQ. I mean, what a ridiculous game. Speaking of insane games, we've now got a clash of titans where Dam is playing against WL Muhammad, 2 of the best Hog EQ players going at each other. So they both start off with cycling their Mighty Miner in the back. Again, I've explained this 1,000 times, but it activates 3-card cycle. It's a pretty safe play when you know what your opponent is playing. In this case, they both know their opponent is playing Hog EQ. It's actually a bit of a twist, because in this matchup, WL Muhammad is using Tesla instead of Cannon, which is actually quite a big disadvantage, and you're going to see how Dan manages to punish him throughout this matchup. You might wonder why it's a disadvantage. It's an advantage in that you always have this high Tesla placement that you can always play, but it's a disadvantage because your cycle becomes slower, and really good players, that's really what matters, and that's why generally up top ladder people use cannons just for that faster cycle, and you're going to see how it's being punished. So far, really important that both of them have managed to get King Tower off of their opponent's Firecracker. If you can, you want to try and not let your opponent get King Tower activations by just not having to cycle it. And if you get the chance, you just have to get your King Tower activated. It gives you such a huge advantage in this matchup. The person who gets that King Tower activated first usually has a really good setup for the rest of the game. So, okay, here we go. Up high, he goes for his cannon delayed because he couldn't cannon trick in time. You see how he just delayed that cannon? Really smart. Just waited for the prediction earthquake and then played his cannon. Also, by doing that, his King Tower helped him out. Here, you can see he doesn't predict an earthquake. He knows his opponent's got Tesla, and that Tesla's always going to be played up high. However, because the Tesla was played up high and the Firecracker was alive, he then logged the Tesla because he knew that it would force out some response by the opponent. And at the same time, he's cycling cards, you know, cycling Ice Spirit at the bridge, yada yada yada. Now we've hit double elixir, and this is where sort of phase 2 of the game begins. So they're both going to try and get Mighty Miner on the field. There you go. They both get it in the lane that they want to go in. Notice that. They're not playing it defensively. Nice even Firecracker by the opponent, but a free Earthquake for Dam. Here. Okay, look at this Firecracker placement. Okay, he hit Skeletons. That was quite nice. And then he goes for this. So this is just top ladder gameplay where they just go for this prediction log, but because he had selected to defend the opponent's Mighty Miner, WL Muhammad could not go for prediction Earthquake. So, okay, he keeps cycling Earthquake. You can see that he's not playing predictive Earthquakes on the Tesla because really this is a battle of chip. That's basically what mirror matchups are, is who can out-chip the other person the most. And so you just want to be cycling as many Earthquakes as possible, especially top ladder, where getting a hog hit is very unlikely. I mean, it kind of depends on the circumstance of the deck. In this case, it's a lot more likely that WL Muhammad is the one who's going to take hog damage compared to WL Muhammad, mainly just because he's got this cannon, and cannon's a lot flimsier in this matchup, but his cycle's quicker. So here we go, hog in the back. This is really only a play you do with double elixir, immediately takes that Firecracker off the board. And here, okay, the hog ride is going to do its damage to the Evo Tesla, but the Tesla will still survive with a bit of HP. And so WL Muhammad goes in aggressive just so that Dam can't get that second hog down that we know he so badly wants to get. Really bad Evo Firecracker. He even goes for an oops. And this is the time to punish. Now he's Mighty Miner at the bridge, right? Because he knows that the opponent messed up and now's the time to punish. He has no Firecracker in cycle. That's why he went for this prediction Earthquake. Because there's no Firecracker, he can't stack up a defense. Whatever he plays, it can be Earthquaked, it can be spelled, and it's going to die. WL Muhammad uses his Mighty Miner ability immediately just to stop any prediction Firecracker damage at the bridge. Goes for a hog, predicting the opponent to go in for a hog at the same time, but WL Muhammad smartly just went for his Tesla up high. Here we go, goes for Evo Cannon up high. Evo Cannon, you don't even need to necessarily always cannon trick because the Evo Cannon will, like, its barrage will hit the hog anyway, so it kind of buys you enough time. You can see how WL Muhammad is using this Mighty Miner and then hog in the back strategy. If you guys are playing this exact deck, which I'm sure you are, I would highly recommend just going for this strategy. Players just don't know how to deal with it. I mean, even players up high struggle against this sort of strategy. And it's just so effective. Just managing, stacking 2 hogs and just earthquaking any building just becomes impossible to defend. And yeah, you can see, look, I mean, this was a nice earthquake, but look at this defense. Perfect log, Firecracker. I'm not gonna lie, when I watch this game, I want you guys to rewind and just rewatch how he defends. Dude, he took no damage. Bro, he literally took no hog damage in that whole push. There's too much to go over. Just look at how he defended that with the Firecracker, the perfect log timing, the Ice Spit. Everything about that was just flawless. If you're a player who struggles against the Evo Furnace, then you need to watch this next matchup. In this game, WL Muhammad is playing against an Evo Furnace Bridgespam deck. The Furnace was extremely broken on launch, but then it got nerfed. So the normal Furnace is still a bit tricky to deal with, but mostly it's fine. It's really just the Evo Furnace that just becomes such a nuisance. And so you're gonna see how Dam deals with it throughout this matchup. So you can see he's just playing his cards low. One thing I want you just to notice how much damage the Furnace actually just took from the log. Furnace has the same HP as a Berserker. It doesn't really have too much HP. That's sort of its weak point. So instead of cycling fireballs if you were playing 2.6 or something, in this case you cycle logs usually, because logs actually do quite a lot of chip damage. Nice little interaction here. His Firecracker died, but that's actually a good thing because he's now stopped his opponent from getting King Tower up. I don't think he meant to do that, but it's definitely something that you can consider doing, at least in single elixir, is just let your Firecracker die. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so Mighty Miner for the Ghost, we know fully counters. Hog opposite lane. Why? When you're playing in single elixir, you don't want to be going too aggressive same lane, because then the counter, imagine all of this counter pushed in the same lane. You're not playing, like 2.6 and stuff, it's a bit easier because you have Fireball, but in this deck, since you only have Earthquake, you don't want to be building up too big of a push. So we had for a nice cannon, nice low Firecracker, beautiful defense. He lets his Evo Firecracker die. That's another thing you need to pay attention to, is that he got his damage on the right side, and then he just fully defended and didn't waste elixir then going for some crazy counter push. He let his Evo Firecracker die, and that's only important in single elixir. Double elixir usually protect it a bit more, but in single, just let it die. Don't be too crazy. Unless your opponent messes up, just chill. That's how you lose. So, okay, first thing he does is cycle an Earthquake, because Earthquake plus a log will put that Furnace at very low HP. Pops the Mighty Miner ability just because uses 3-card cycle, and whilst 3-card cycle is active, he cycled the cannon. Now he gets a Firecracker down. That's one big tip I want to give you guys against bridge spam matchups, is generally you want to be stacking cannons, like play your cannon early. His opponent only has poison as his spell, and so if he poisons the cannon, then he won't have any way of killing the Firecracker, and vice versa. So that's kind of the reasoning behind why you want to be stacking cannons, because they're always going to use a poison on the Firecracker. Again, here we go. Nice log onto the Furnace. Firecracker shot, Ice Spirit, and another Firecracker shot. It's dead at the same time. You've got a Mighty Miner in the opposite lane just to deal with the Evo Lumberjack. Here we go. Nice low cannon placement. Fully counters. Skeletons just to pull the Barbarians to the middle. Everything counters. Again, he's going for a Hog at the same time because he wants to stop the opponent being too aggressive. Opponent actually got a really nice just a really nice Bar Barrel prediction. But okay, just nice defense overall. I mean, it's kind of formulaic. You can see when he plays his Evo Cannon, that's one thing. Another tip for you guys, when you play your Evo Cannon, in this kind of bridge spammy kind of matchups, it's often a very good idea to go for up high, because the barrage will hit stuff at the bridge that's like in line with it. That's kind of the reason why you would play it at the bridge. Here he just tries to protect it, kind of fails a little bit, but overall he's got a nice lead. And the matchup strategy for this is just slowly get that chip damage, one Hog hit at a time, bit of Firecracker damage, and then defend. Here we go, he's defending it. Mighty Miner 3-card cycle. Right before he died, he played a cannon, right? So 3-card cycle, just keep that in mind. So nice skellies just surround the Ghost. With log, just to keep that cannon alive for a little bit longer. You can see that the pull nerf from the Firecracker didn't really affect it. You can see it still got pulled to the battle ram. Skeletons up high, that's another thing. Usually, and this is just a tip in general for Hog decks, is that you usually play your cannon in the middle, and then all your cycle cards, typically just play them at the bridge. You want to keep stuff as high up in the arena as possible. Beautiful play again, nice Evo Cannon. Honestly, it's just a textbook game, you know, he's not doing anything crazy. I think this is very achievable for you guys to be able to play a matchup like this. He's not done anything particularly special, no like crazy micro interactions. All he's doing, you can see, look, skeletons up high. Like I said, just play stuff up high. Another reason, by the way, you play stuff up high is because it kind of keeps it in position to make your Firecracker hit the target. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but sometimes your Firecracker just misses. Like, you'll just completely whiff on a moving target. So if you keep it at the bridge, it can't move, right? And so often that will help the Firecracker not miss. He kind of fumbled that set of skellies and takes some damage, but he has too much of a lead. Great game, GG's. This next game is played absolutely flawlessly by WL Dam, and I can't stress enough just how important it is to have the basics and fundamentals of this deck nailed, and you're going to witness that throughout this game. So opponent goes for a Goblin Machine, so WL Dam responds with a Mighty Miner in the back. It's going to counter his Goblin Machine if the opponent doesn't do anything, and the opponent goes for a Curse. Curse is basically just so that it does more damage, and actually look, the Mighty Miner is about half HP gone, so good Curse by the opponent. Dagger Duchess will mostly take it out with the Prince, and so look, against beatdown decks, I think really what you want to understand about this deck is that depending on the matchup, you need to figure out what you need to be cycling the most. In some matchups, you cycle a lot of Firecrackers, in some matchups, you cycle a lot of Hogs. In this matchup, you need to cycle a lot of Cannons, right? Because your opponent's going to build these massive, giant Prince pushes with Goblin Machine, Curse, Lightning as well. You want to be stacking Cannons. Some matchups you want to stack, other cards, but in this matchup, it's a Cannon, and you're going to see how he does that. So he goes for a Hog. Opponent has Hunter. At this point, I mean, you can't really predict what deck the opponent's playing. He's got a bunch of random cards. Log the Skeleton King ability, Mighty Miner locks, and that's basically a dead Skeleton King. If you guys didn't know, quick little interaction tip, you can surround Hunter and fully counter it with skeletons. Quite a basic tip, but still a very important one. Ice Spirit, so the Skeleton King doesn't have his ability back, so he's not worried about that. And now he's kind of got a reset. The opponent wants to build these basically the opponent's game strategy is to wait till double, which is now, and build these massive pushes. So the reason he goes for a Hog immediately is because if the opponent then tried to respond to the Hog Rider, well, that support troop would then go in front of the Giant, which would make it very easy to counter, and since he's going to go for a Cannon anyway, it'll make his defense really easy. Notice how he cycled a Cannon first, and then look at that Skeleton placement. Rewind back and take a look. That Skeleton placement made the Prince jump in front of the Cannon, and often if they don't just Lightning, like most of the time they don't Lightning, it'll actually make so that the Prince dies first. So that was a really nice Skeleton placement and an important one to learn. He then goes in, and this is really important. Why does he Earthquake here? He Earthquakes because the opponent just went all in and now has to go fully on defense, and so he won't have any elixir to be able to stop this Firecracker. And look how he protects it. One push, then he goes again. This Firecracker is still alive. Second push, he's still protecting it. Ice Spirit, Skeletons, Earthquake. Dude, he's not letting this die. And then look, he goes for a Hog. Opponent is forced to Lightning on defense. And at this point, he's already back to another Firecracker. This is like pure BM. This was such a beautifully played game. Just mastered all the fundamentals and put it on display for you guys. And in this last game, probably the most anticipated matchup of the video, Hog EQ versus Logbait. It's about halfway through the game, and both Dam and his opponent have about the same amount of damage on each of their towers. But the first thing to note is that Dam's towers are both taking damage, and that's because that's kind of the strategy of these really fast cycle Logbait decks, is that they want to be applying pressure as much as possible in both lanes. And so you need to learn to deal with that. You can see how here Dam has stacked his Cannon and his Firecracker, and that's really important thing to note is that he's cycling his Cannons proactively because he wants to get to his Evo Cannon. Evo Cannon is just really, really good in this matchup, and that's why he's just sort of cycling his Cannons so that he can get to that Evo Cannon as soon as possible. One thing to note, first of all, look at this interaction. Firecracker versus Dark Goblin. Rewind that back and take a look. It's something new I learned. 5 tiles away from the tower, 3 tiles up, you can fully counter an inside tile Dark Goblin. But going back to what I was saying, that the opponent doesn't have any big spells, and so really you can really abuse your Firecrackers and your Cannons in this matchup, especially if you can try and keep them alive. Like, it kind of depends. Often your Cannon will just die to wall breakers, or they'll snipe it. If they're good, they'll just go for a Dark Goblin at the bridge and try and snipe it off. But generally you want to just try and stack these cards as much as possible because your opponent has no counter to them, and then you eventually get this like really nice counter push. It's really weird. It's like one of the few matchups where you actually want to try and counter push with Hog EQ alongside like cycling Hogs, of course, but you'll see normally when that breakthrough comes is when you actually get the counter push. So okay, Cannon just to tank for these wall breakers. Opponent has, that's one thing, when your opponent has Evo Valkyrie in cycle, he didn't do it there, but sometimes you can go for an Ice Spirit to get a Hog outside of a NATO loop. That's another big thing to mention. Look how he just used Log on the normal goblins and he used Earthquake on the Evo like barrel or whatever it's called. Very important that in double and mainly triple elixir, that's what you can do to counter this Evo Goblin barrel push. He's got 3 card cycle, but right now he's just sort of chilling. He goes for his Firecracker Skeletons. He's just sort of defending and making sure he doesn't lose. Look, he's back to his Evo Cannon, gets rid of the Goblin gang, cycles his Firecracker, and look, he has 2 Firecrackers on the board. Triple Elixir is like your best friend because they cannot break through and you can just stack troops. Now he goes in, Hog, prediction cannon, prediction log. He just goes all in on the opponent. Like, he can't kill the Firecrackers. That's the strategy for this matchup, is that as long as you can make sure you're dealing with the Dark Goblins and, you know, all the spam, look how he defends. He decides to take the damage just so he doesn't lose his left tower, and then he eventually logs on the right. He's EQ cycling. That's really important that you continue to EQ cycle later on in the game, because your opponent doesn't have a big spell. Not only can they not kill your Firecrackers and cannon, they also can't get damage. So once you have the lead, if you can just maintain it, you'll win. And yeah, perfectly played game. If you guys like the video, please subscribe. Please also hit the like button and you know, comment in the description below.